Okay, so today we are going to talk about Cosmos DB. So welcome everyone to this session. In this session, I am not going to cover like everything because 2 hours is very small time to cover everything about Cosmos DB, but definitely it will cover most of the things that people are curious to know about Cosmos DB. Right? We'll start from the basic ones like what is Cosmos DB, its security aspects, and then how you can create a Cosmos DB account and how you can start querying against the data in your Cosmos DB account. So we're going to cover those things, and in the end, I'm going to cover even the use cases that how you are going to leverage Cosmos DB, that where you actually are going to use, right? Because that makes more sense even after knowing everything. If you don't know where to use it, then it's completely useless, right? So I'll try to cover as much as possible, and after that, in case if you want me to cover anything in detail, you can drop me a note on email or just on Meetup group, and I will try to take up those topics in future. Okay, so let's jump to the slides. So here it is that we are going to cover today. First one is about introduction, first section. And in this introduction part, we are going to talk about what is Cosmos DB and how is it globally distributed, what is the consistency level, and then we have high availability. And I'll talk a little bit about regional presence. And one of the most important topic of Cosmos DB is partitioning. So we'll talk about that, and then provision throughput. So that is also one of the most important topic. So we'll talk about those things. And then next we'll jump to security part. Now this is the most important thing here because most of the time when we work with a customer, they're the biggest worry their biggest worry is about the data security. So we'll talk about that in detail, in which we are going to cover first like overview, and then data encryption, where basically data encryption at rest, and then secure access to data, IP firewall, virtual network, and then advanced threat protection. And after that, I am going to how to guide section. In that, I will show you how to create Cosmos DB resources. I'm going to skip this create and manage data part right now because that I'm keeping for another session. And then you have migrate data, in which I'll just give the overview how you can migrate the data. Then I'll show you how to create a notebook in Cosmos DB and write your Python API or like create your Python application or anything. Then how you can distribute data globally. So we are going to cover these topics today. So let's begin with the first topic, and just give me one moment. Yeah. So first topic is like what is Cosmos DB? What is Azure Cosmos DB, right? So the very basic definition that comes about Azure Cosmos DB is like it is globally distributed, highly available, multi-model database service, right? Mainly for operational and analytics workloads. Now, it offers multi-mastering feature by automatically scaling throughput, compute, and storage. So we'll talk about those things in detail. But basically, this is a NoSQL database which supports various kind of API or models. So you can see below in this diagram, it supports key value model, then column family, document based, and graph. Initially, when this was launched, it was not called Cosmos DB, it was called Document DB. And that time it was just like a document based API, and main thing was like uh, it, by default it only had SQL API. Okay, it didn't have any other API. Later they introduced the support for all other open source APIs. Example Cassandra, MongoDB, Gremlin, right? So that time they renamed it as Cosmos DB, and it became easier for all those people who were using kind of open source NoSQL database, but they wanted to leverage cloud. And after introducing this particular feature in Cosmos DB, it became very much feasible for everybody that even if they are using Cassandra or they are using MongoDB or Gremlin, they can just come to Azure without much hassle, right? So when they migrate their existing open source technology or like existing NoSQL database to Azure, they don't need to make any changes in their application. Like not like lot of changes in their application. They will have to change the connection string and all, but underneath all the like code, whatever they have written up for that particular NoSQL database will remain as it is. So that way it gives very much flexibility that to come to cloud or basically to Azure, right? So there are a couple of features that there are many features actually, but I have tried to cover a couple of features here. One feature is turnkey global distribution. So Cosmos DB enables you to build highly responsive and highly available applications worldwide. And Cosmos DB transparently replicates your data wherever your users are. So your users can interact with a replica of the data that is closest to them. Now, this feature is very helpful because suppose you are working on a very uh, kind of in one environment where your application is being used worldwide and your users are spread worldwide and they want to access the data. In that case, like if your data is in that particular region, they can access it very fast, right? But if suppose someone is sitting in Australia and they want to access the data which is residing here, uh, suppose in East US, definitely there'll be a kind of latency. And if you are talking about very high performant applications, for example, suppose gaming solutions, right? If you are playing a game in sitting in Australia and your entire data set is residing in East US, uh, so you will not, the response will not be very fast, right? So in that case, Cosmos DB comes up with this solution of global distribution. So it replicates the data in each and every region that you select, right? So if your data is residing, so if you are sitting in Australia and you are accessing the application from Australia, the data will be replicated even to Australia region. And that way it will be fast, like the uh, kind of latency will be very low and the application will be very fast, right? So that is one of the biggest feature of Cosmos DB. Now, next one is always on. Then by virtue of deep integration with Azure infrastructure and transparent multi-master application, Cosmos DB provides 99.999% high availability for both reads and writes. Okay. So that way, this is, I think, one of the database which provides you like five nines availabilities, like high availability, right? And that is because of like uh, too much of replication. We'll talk about that, how it is going to replicate the data. Then the next feature is elastic scalability of throughput and storage worldwide, right? So again, it's designed with transparent horizontal partitioning and multi-master replication. Cosmos DB offers unprecedented elastic scalability for your writes and reads all around the globe, right? So you can scale up from thousands to hundreds of millions of requests per second around the globe with a single API call and pay only for the throughput and storage you need. Right, so we will see all those things, that how you can leverage the throughput of Cosmos DB. And then again, guaranteed low latency at 99th percentile worldwide. So you can build highly responsive planet scale applications the way I told you, like if you are using any gaming application or anything, right? So Cosmos DB guarantees less than 10 millisecond latencies for both reads and writes at the 99th percentile. Now, next one is precisely defined multiple consistency choices. This is also a very important topic where you have a choice to choose between the consistency models, right? Like you have to decide what you are going to trade off, like whether you want a better performance or whether you want a consistency, whether you want availability. So based on your choice, you can decide the consistency levels, which is unlikely in with most of other NoSQL database. They get you flexibility only to choose between two. Either it should be very strong consistency model or it should be eventual, like whether they want to see the data at whatever cost, whether it is replicated in other regions or no. They want to see the latest data in their region, right? And strong is something like where they want to see only those data which are committed in all the regions. But with Cosmos DB, it gives you the flexibility that you can choose many other options between strong and eventual. And we will talk about that also in just a couple of minutes. Right. And then next one is no schema or index management. So this one, Cosmos DB takes care of the indexes automatically. So you don't have to worry about indexes, that how you are going to create index and how you have to manage indexes. right? So that is also one big advantage because that takes away a big overhead on top, like from your head, right? So with this, uh, let's go to the next slide, which is about global data distribution. So forget about the text that you see on top. Just come to the diagram here, and you will understand what it is trying to do, right? This is your internet, and you are connected to the application on this internet through your browser, your mobile applications, or your any computer device or anything, or tablet, right? It sends the request to the traffic manager. Traffic manager sends it to different regions, as I was mentioning, whether like West US, North Europe, or Southeast Asia. Then again, you have application gateway internally. You have multiple like web tiers, right? In one in this tier. Just give me one moment. Yeah. Okay, and then you have load balancers. Load balancer will take care of any for your application basically, right? If there is any slow performance or you want to take care of the load, so load balancer is very helpful in those cases. Normally, sometimes we create there are two ways like internal and public. So you can take care of that load balancer. If you are aware of load balancer, it's good. Even if not, it's okay, right? But the most important part is the last one, which is Azure Cosmos DB. You see that in every region there is one instance of Azure Cosmos DB, right? So you have in West US, you have in North Europe, and you have in Azure Cosmos DB. So it doesn't matter whether your application is running in West US, North Europe, or Southeast Asia, right? The data is replicated in that region, and that's how it is globally distributed, right? And let me show you even one more thing before I proceed further. So this is a Cosmos DB account that I have created for this particular session, right? I'll show you how to create it, but before going to that, this part will be covered in our like how to guide session, right? But before that, let me show you how you can replicate data globally. So this is how it looks when you click on replicate data globally, right? And it's just that you select any region. Right now we are in East US. Suppose I select this West US too, okay, and let me just okay, and that's it. It will show you that your West US2 is your read region, right? You can uh, you can make it like availability zone, and then you have multi-region rights, right? So you can enable multi-region rights as well. So that way it will allow you to have, so your application can write in both the regions, East US or West US, right? But if I disable it, then there will be just one write region and there will be multiple read regions. So if I add maybe suppose here, Australia Southeast, so that also will be added in read regions. Now suppose again I add here, right? That is Japan East. So again it is adding in read regions. So this is as easy it is you can say you are just clicking on one link and then it's adding all these things, and after that you click on save. That's it, it will be done. So basically the Cosmos DB will understand that your applications are running in these regions and it will replicate the data in those regions. Okay, now the best part is uh, so it does not impact the latency. Okay, and there are many other things. I will talk about those details also uh, in detail, but let's jump to the next part. Okay, let me just show you. If I click on this multi-region rights, you see everything moves up and then everything is write enabled, read enabled, everything. But if I disable, then there is only one write region and there are multiple read regions. And I'll talk about this, what are these write regions and read, how it is going to help in performance, right? So we'll talk about those things in detail. Now this is one topic that I was saying which is very important. Like Azure Cosmos DB approaches data consistency as a spectrum of choices instead of two extremes. As I was telling you, two extremes like strong or eventual. So in most of the cases, people have only two options. Either it has to be very strong or it is going to be very weak, right? But Cosmos DB gives you multiple options. First one is strong. Then you have something called bounded stainless, then session, consistent prefix, and eventual. And we will talk about this in little detail. Let's go to this. On left side, you see default consistency. So I'm not saving this part. Let's discard this. So when you come to this page or this particular window, default consistency, you will see session, right? So session consistency is most widely used consistency level both for single region as well as globally distributed applications. And in case if you are planning to write any certification for Azure and all, then this is a very important question that appear in most of the certifications, that what is the default consistency level of Cosmos DB, which is session. Okay, but you have the option to change the consistency level. So if you see the diagram below, okay, in this session, if you understand this diagram, I am not sure if you can see it big. Let me try to zoom it in and show you, right? So look at this diagram, this GIF diagram actually, this gives you a better understanding that what is happening here, okay? So East US writes in session A. So in this particular thing, it's writing, right? This is your write region in East US. Now East US reads in session A. So, and again, Australia Central reads in session A. So you see in this session, it's consistent. The moment you are writing, you are able to read. But last one is Australia, it's East reads in session B, right? If they are reading in session B, then there is some kind of latency, right? So it's not consistent with the session A. So this is about session consistency, which is the default one. And in this, it doesn't even guarantee the sequence, like, okay, it has to come in that sequence only. So we'll talk about that sequence in another consistency level. Let's go to strong, right? The strong is that reads are guaranteed to see the most recent write. It means when it is consistent, so basically every region has to be consistent. It means whatever you are writing in one region has been replicated in another region, and then only you will be able to read the committed data. It means if you are sitting in East US and the data is still being replicated, suppose in Australia, you will not be able to read that data in East US until it is replicated even in Australia. Although this replication happens within 10 milliseconds, so you will not know the difference, but internally it takes time, right? Sorry. So this is about strong. So it means anytime you are reading the data, it is the most committed data, and any region you read the data, you will read the same data. But then go to eventual. In the absence of any further writes, the replicas within the group will eventually converge. So eventual consistency is ideal where the application does not require any ordering guarantees. Examples include count of retweets, likes, or non-threaded comments. Okay, so sometimes when you are just reading about the number of tweets and those things, so where basically the sequence doesn't matter, then you can go with eventual consistency, and you can see nothing is consistent. Like you are writing in East US, and even if you are again reading in East US, there is no guarantee that you will read at the same time. And again, if you see this red color comes first, but you are reading blue one first, right? So there is no consistency that even if this thing came first, you are reading blue one first, right? So there is no guarantee on that. That's why they are saying that you go with, if you just want to maybe count retweets, likes, or something, it doesn't matter in what sequence the likes have come. You are just worried about the count, right? So this is about the eventual consistency. Now let's come to bounded staleness. Now in bounded staleness, like unlike strong consistency, which is scoped to a single region, you can choose bounded staleness consistency with your number of read regions along with write region. Bounded stainless is great for applications featuring group collaboration and sharing, stock ticker, publish, subscribe, or queuing, etc. So basically here you are grouping and then you are providing a stainless consistency. So basically even if any data has been written to your Cosmos DB account, you are giving a bounded stainless maybe for 5 seconds or 10 seconds, and that you can configure here. So you see here you are defining the lag, right? So even if your data has been written now, you will be able to read that maybe after, if you are giving 5 seconds, so you will be able to read the data only after 5 seconds. So basically the committed data also you will be able to read only after 5 seconds. So in simple words, suppose you wrote a data, you inserted a data in Cosmos DB right now, and you have kept a lag for 10 minutes, right? So even if the data has been replicated in all the regions within 5 minutes, you will not be able to read it. You will have to wait for 10 minutes to read that data. Okay, so this is about your bounded staleness. So you are forcing the staleness that okay, let it remain for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 5 seconds. Last one is consistent prefix. Now in this one, it guarantees the sequence. So if you see, it does not guarantee that your read regions or you will be able to read exactly at the same time when write happened, but it confirms, it gives you the assurity of kind of sequence. So if you see if the red one has arrived first, then in any other region you will see red only has arrived first. Maybe after a certain time, but red has arrived first. Then if you see the blue one is the next. So even in other regions, you will see blue is the next one. Same with purple, same with black, then green, then yellow. Okay, so this is about consistent prefix. So this is about your consistency levels in Cosmos DB. So this is very important topic to understand. Like if you are dealing with very high performance applications, uh, and it again comes down to your decision that which consistency level will be best optimized or best for your particular solution. Okay, so let's move to the next slide, which is actually about choosing the right consistency level. Right, so for choosing the right consistency level, we need to understand these consistency levels, that how it is working, right? So let's go through these points. Maybe this will make more sense. So when the consistency level is set to bounded staleness, Cosmos DB guarantees that the clients always read the value of previous write with a lag bounded by a staleness window. So this is the same thing that I mentioned, that even if uh, the data is committed in all the regions, you are making that staleness, uh, like the bounded staleness for a certain period of time. So client or any application will not be able to read that data, right? So you need to understand whether this will suit your application or not, right? Is it okay if your application is reading some dirty data or not? So that will go with your application. That is your decision. Next one is when the consistency level is set to strong, the stainless window is equivalent to 0, and the clients are guaranteed to read the latest committed value of the write operation. So as I mentioned you, even if you are going with a strong consistency level, the data will be committed to all the regions within 10 milliseconds. So ideally it does not make much difference, right? But again, some applications where it want to see the immediate reaction, so that in that case maybe strong consistency will not be sufficient, right? So that is one thing you need to take care of. For example, like as I mentioned about a gaming thing, like you are playing a game, or suppose you are using Cosmos DB for transactional data as a transactional database, and someone has made a transaction, and if you are waiting for strong consistency, and so what happens actually? So if one customer is ordering, suppose one particular product sitting in India, and other customer is ordering for the same product sitting in the US, right? And they suppose online, maybe some shopping cart, and there is just one product available, right? And you don't maintain a strong consistency level, then what happens? At the same time, two people ordered the same thing, right? Now the application, like you have only one product left out. That way you are going to cause some issue, right? And because there are like billions of people in the world, and you cannot guarantee that two people cannot access the same particular product at the at the same time. Although this is not like very this is very coincidental, but still when you are building your application, you have to take care of that. Now again, for the remaining three consistency levels, the stainless window is largely dependent on your workload. So basically, it's trying to say maybe your write operations are not very high, right? You're writing very minimal. That way, anyways, your application is going to be eventual, consistent, or whatever. Like it is going to be strong if your write is low. But if your write is fast, then all these things make difference. Now, one important thing that I also got to know recently, that if you need even higher data durability without sacrificing performance, you can create a custom consistency level at the application layer. So I'll share this link with you like after the session. So you can go through this in detail, which will allow you to create a custom synchronization in your applications. Okay. So let's go to high availability. Now, here I'm going to talk about how internally Cosmos DB is replicating the data and how it is making highly available for you. So let me minimize this also. I'm going to discard these changes. Okay, so let's come here and see. So the data within Cosmos containers is horizontally partitioned. Okay, when we say horizontally partitioned, so we will talk about this in just a couple of minutes in detail, like what is partitioning and what is logical partitioning and physical partitioning. We'll talk about that in detail. But yeah, the data within Cosmos containers is horizontally partitioned. So if you see here, these are like horizontally partitioned. Okay, within each region, each partition is projected by a replica set with all writes replicated and durably committed by most replicas. Replicas are distributed across as many as 10 to 20 fault domains. So definitely it makes more sense when you know there are 10 to 20 fault domains, then nothing can go wrong, right? Like if your data is replicated at so many places, definitely definitely you are not going to lose your data at any cost. Each partition across all regions is replicated. Okay, so you see if you are having three different regions here, right? Like region 1, region 2, like n different regions, and then each partition across all the regions are replicated. So you see all these partitions are replicated in all the regions. So basically you are not losing any data. And what these partitions are actually, so all these partitions contain your data, right? It means if you have suppose millions of records, then all those millions of records will be kind of sharded across all these partitions, and then those will be replicated in different regions. So if you have n different regions, everything will be replicated. So same thing as I told you, as I showed you just now, how you can replicate the data globally. Whatever region you will select, it will replicate the data there, right? So in addition to, okay, before that, if your Cosmos account is distributed across n Azure regions, there will be at least n into 4 copies of all your data. Okay. And in addition to cross-region resiliency, you can now enable zone redundancy when selecting a region to associate with your Azure Cosmos database. And this is the same thing that I showed you here. So if I come here, there is this multi-region rights, and there was one more thing here, availability zone. So you can enable this also, right? So if I add one reason, this fine. This is the same thing that you can do, but you can uh, make this as availability zone. Okay, this feature has been added recently that you can add availability zone also in Cosmos DB. So this again gives you additional kind of high availability on your Cosmos DB account. One second. Now next we are going to talk about regional presence. That Manoj is saying there is slight latency. So sorry Manoj, there is slight latency means in the video or where you are saying? Okay. Okay, I will try to go a little slow and I hope that will be fine. Okay. So let's go to regional presence. So this is something that it's good to know. It's not very important topic, but it's good to know that Cosmos DB is available in all 5 distinct Azure cloud environments available to customers. Right? One is so this is a very important thing to understand that Azure is there are 5 types of Azure cloud. One is Azure public cloud, then there is Azure China, Azure Germany, then there is a government, and then there is one for DoD, right? And Cosmos DB is available with all these Azure clouds, right? So people normally don't know about this, but yeah, there are 5 different uh, cloud environments provided by Azure, right? So what we are using is Azure public cloud, and then you have for China there is a separate cloud environment provided by Azure, and they work together with there's something called 21 via net, right, which is the country's largest internet provider. Then for Germany, again, there is the same. There is a something called GmbH. They work along with that, right? So in these regions, data cannot come out of it, right? If we are on Azure public cloud, you can replicate wherever you want in the world, but not to these uh, environments. As you see, you cannot, if you are working in Azure China, you cannot bring the data out of that China. If you are working in Germany, you cannot bring out that data. So that way it assures that your data remains within your country, it doesn't leave the country, right? So this is important to understand if you're working with any government customer or anything, right? So this is about regional presence of Azure Cosmos DB. So it is available with all 5 different Azure environments. Now here it comes partitioning, which is a very important topic, right? And just give me one moment. I wanted to cover this topic in detail because if you don't understand this, then you are going to make mistakes. So let's try to understand what is partition actually, right? So whenever you have the data, first of all, you need to understand that in Cosmos DB, you can store data in JSON format, right? And then let me show you how the data looks, and then I can talk about partitioning. Let's go to Data Explorer. So I have some sample data. Let me show you other one. Yeah. So this is one example. So you see, you can store data in Cosmos DB in JSON format, and the biggest part of the and biggest advantage of Cosmos DB is there is no limitation on the size of Cosmos DB, right? You can store terabytes, petabytes of data, but there is a limitation on each partition, which is 20 GB. So if you see here, like each logical partition can store up to 20 GB of data. Now, what is a logical partition? So basically partition you create based on your data. Okay. In this example, you have cart ID, action, item, price, username, country, event data, year, latitude, longitude, address. Now you can create partition based on any of these column, but you have to make sure, you have to understand there is a limitation with the partition, logical partitioning, right? That is 20 GB. So now suppose I create partition based on year. Then what will happen? You will have multiple cards, multiple customers, multiple items, and then you are restricting the number of data if you select year, because there is a limitation of 20 GB. And the data can go huge if we are selecting year. So maybe here in this case, year is 2014, right? And in 2014 itself, you can have billions of records, but it can hit the limit of 20 GB, right? So definitely selecting year as your partition key might not be a good option. Then what is a good option here? Maybe address, right? But again, if you are using address, right, there is no guarantee of using the same text as address, right? Somebody is using 964 Isabel station, okay, and somebody will give it without space. So that way it becomes difficult if you are trying to create partition using address. But if there was like unique address, right, where you can make sure the customer is not going to make mistake in adding these addresses, they add the same thing. Maybe in your application you give a drop down so that they don't enter it manually. That way you are making sure the customer or anybody is going to enter the correct address. Now that is definitely not a feasible option because you cannot give all the address in a drop down. So definitely they're going to have a free text. So again, address is not going to be a good option. Next, let's go to country. Can I select a country? Now, suppose if it is worldwide application, and in this example, this is Tunisia is one country, right? And maybe there are multiple customers in that country. That is fine. Maybe Tunisia is a small country, there will be less number of people now. But now suppose we give a country China. Now China has like a very big population, and then or India also has a very big population. Then if those many people start using this application, then again it might hit the threshold, right, of 20 GB. Now, what could be the best option here? So maybe if I use username, right, one particular user, even if a user is going to use this application for the lifetime, I don't think it's going to hit the target of 20 GB. Okay, so maybe username is a good option. Okay, uh, so in this way, what it will do when you select a username, every time there is a new entry for a new user, it will create a new logical partition, and it will start storing all the data for that particular user in that particular logical partitioning. Okay, so that way, now you know that if a user is going to make even hundreds and millions of transactions in one application, it's not going to hit the threshold, and that way even if you have millions of users, you can store like billions or trillions of data in your Cosmos DB. And that way, if you are using your partition key appropriately, you will never hit the limit, or you can use Cosmos DB as unlimited data storage. So that's why it's very important to understand how you create a partition and how the partitioning works actually. Now this is about logical partitioning, right? Now there is something called physical partitioning. Now there is not something like one-to-one mapping of logical and physical partitioning. An Azure Cosmos container is scaled by distributing data and throughput across physical partitions. Internally, one or more logical partitions are mapped to a single physical partition. So it's not one-to-one mapping. That one logical partition will be mapped to one physical partition. Okay. Unlike logical partitions, physical partitions are an internal implementation of the system, and they are entirely managed by Azure Cosmos DB. So logical partition is being managed by you, your data, but physical partition is being managed by Azure Cosmos DB. Now, amount of provisioned throughput, each individual physical partition can provide a throughput of up to 10,000 request units per second. And we'll talk about request units, what are request units and how it is measured, right? And then total data storage is again each individual physical partition can store up to 50 GB. So this is the difference that you see, right? Like logical partition can store up to 20 GB, but physical partition can store up to 50 GB. Okay, so this is about partitioning, and I hope this is clear, and this is very important. In case if you want to learn more about partitioning, go ahead and search for partitioning in Cosmos DB. Spend more time on this if you want to use Cosmos DB, because if you don't use partitioning correctly, then there is no use of using Cosmos DB. Let's go to the next one, which is provision throughput. Now request units. Now this is also a very important topic to understand what is a request unit. Now cost of a request in terms of CPU, memory and IO, right? So the amount of data that you're writing or reading, right? So it is utilizing your CPU, it is utilizing your memory and IO. So a cost to all those things is replicated or a kind of uh, presented in front of you in terms of requests per unit. Now requests per unit can be uh, so basically you can do provision throughput at two granularities. One is database and one is container level. Normally it is recommended to do throughput on container level because that will be more specific, and then you can uh, you can do you can provision certain RUs for each container. Right now, before going to that, it's important to understand what is a container and what is a database, right? So before jumping further, I will show you what is database and container. So let me close this and let me open this one. I'll show you how to create these things in demo section, but before that I just wanted to show you. So you create a Cosmos DB account. when you create a Cosmos DB account, first you create a database. So these are the databases. So you see retail demo, sample DB, family, these are the databases. And inside these databases, you have containers, right? So this is one container, like website data is one container. Then in sample DB persons is one container. So these are the containers. Now in one database, you can have multiple containers, right? You may be related to various things, like I can create persons, then I can create maybe departments or anything. I can have multiple uh, containers in the same database, right? So it is recommended to use provision throughput with on each container so that you can provision on a particular container. Suppose one container, like your applications are using one container uh, uh, like more frequently than your other container. So that way you can allocate more RU to that particular container, and that way it is well utilized. But if you are selecting throughput on the basis of a database and you have multiple containers underneath and only one or two databases are being used very frequently, then it will be like you are actually wasting the resources allocated to that database. So that's why it's recommended. But again, there are cases where you can go to even database level throughputs. Okay, now how you identify the number of RUs? So there is again not like one-on-one mapping that okay, one read is equal to one RU. Okay, it's valid here. You see one read equal to one RU, but again, one read of 100 KB is equal to 10 RU, right? So it's not that one read of 1 kilobyte is 1 RU. So it means one read of 100 kilobyte is 100 RU. So that's why it's difficult to understand what is actually number of RUs for your Cosmos DB account. And that's why in most of the cases, it is recommended that you go to your you run your Cosmos DB account, you run your applications, maybe for a sample records, and then you try to find out how many RUs it is using for these many records. Then you can make one estimate that how many RUs it will be using for uh, when you are deploying it in production, right? So don't think that if you have these many reads and these many writes, there will be one-on-one mapping of RUs. So it's always better to go ahead and run your sample data in your Cosmos DB account and then check the metrics that how much RUs it is going to use. And in Cosmos DB account itself, you have this metrics option where actually you can go and read about all those things. You have all these things here, throughput, right? Number of requests you can see here. So it will show you number of requests, storage, availability, all those things are there in metrics. So it's always recommended that you run a sample data and then you find out what is the number of RUs, and then based on that you define what RU you are going to choose, right? Now recently they have added this auto scale option where you can just provide maximum throughput, right? Maybe 1 million per second RUs or 100,000 per second RUs. Then in that case it will do auto scaling, but you'll be charged minimum for 10%. Okay, so if you are suppose going for maximum throughput of 100,000 RUs per second, that way you will be charged for 10,000 RUs per second, right? You will not charge for the entire 100,000. But if you are going to touch that threshold, or if you are exceeding 10% of that, then you will be charged on the actuals, right? But the minimum charge will be 10%. So, and this saves a lot of cost. And one more important thing is indexing. So indexing also affects RU cost, right? So again, indexing and all, like the way you create a partition and the way it takes Cosmos DB takes care of indexing. That's why, like when you create a demo account and you run through your data, you will get one better understanding of RUs. So this is about the first section. And then next one is about security. Before going to that, I will take a short break and then I'll be back in just like 5 minutes. But before that, if anyone has any question related to all these topics, any of these topics that we covered so far. Hello everyone, I am back. I hope everyone else is also back now.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we will continue with the next topic, which is security. Right, so most of the time whenever you go in front of any customer, the biggest problem is security, right? So we will talk about this, that how Cosmos DB is secured and how the data of any customer or anybody is secured on Cosmos DB. Right, so there are a couple of things that I've covered here in this slide. First thing, that is like encryption at rest is now available for documents and backups stored in Azure Cosmos DB in all Azure regions. It means first thing, encryption at rest. So if you have worked with Azure SQL database and managed instance, other things, so it is the same thing, like encryption at rest is available even with Cosmos DB now in all the regions. Now, encryption at rest is applied automatically for both new and existing customers in these regions. So even if like in some regions where encryption at rest was not available, and now it has been made available, so they don't need to do any explicit change. It's just that they have to, uh, means it will be done automatically. They don't need to do anything, right? Next one is about network security. So using an IP firewall is the first layer of protection to secure your database. Azure Cosmos DB supports policy-driven IP-based access controls for inbound firewall support. Okay, the IP-based controls are similar to the firewall rules used by the used by traditional database systems, but they are expanded so that uh, an Azure Cosmos database account is only accessible from an approved set of machines or cloud services. And we'll see like how it is done in just a couple of minutes. And Azure Cosmos DB enables you to enable a specific IP address or IP range and combination of IPs and ranges. So it gives you the option to select one particular IP range, or you can have both. Right? All requests originating from machines outside this allowed list are blocked by Azure Cosmos DB. Requests from approved machines and cloud services then must complete the authentication process to be given access. Okay, and I can show you here. It comes here, right? So firewall and virtual networks. So you can, by default, it's like allow access from all networks, but then you can go to selected networks and you see here IP, and you can see this option here, right? Like it is saying single IPv4 or CIDR range. So it does. So one thing, it does not support IPv6 so far. That maybe in future it will be added. Right now it supports only IPv4. So you can give either single IPv4 or you can provide a CIDR range, right? And you can add multiple. It's not that you have to just one. So see here it is saying add my current IP, so I can just go ahead and it will be done, right? I can just go ahead and save it. But for this session, I am just going to keep it for all the networks, right? Next one is authorization. So Azure Cosmos DB uses hash-based message authentication code, uh, like called HMAC. Then each request is hashed using the secret account key, and the subsequent base 64 encoded hash is sent with each call to Azure Cosmos DB. So if you know about this authorization process, it's fine. Even if not, it's good to know, because if you are talking to any customer and they talk about this, you should know that Azure Cosmos DB performs this hash-based message authentication. Okay, so again, to validate the request, Azure Cosmos DB service uses the correct secret key and properties to generate a hash, then compares the value with the one in request. If the two values match, the operation is authorized successfully and the request is processed. Otherwise, there is an authorization failure and the request is rejected. Right, and for that you can use a master key or resource token. Again, we will talk about that in detail in just a couple of minutes. Now, next one is users and permissions. Right, so using the master key for the account, you can create user resources and permission resources per database. Okay, and let me show you where it is. So before uh, going further, so here you see access control. So here you can go and provide all the role assignment. You can add a role assignment, right? So you can go to that, add here, then you will select a role, and then select any particular user, whomever you want to add here. Okay, so you see I have multiple users added to my Active Directory. So you need to add those users in the Active Directory, and then you can go ahead and add the access here, right? So next point is again about that Active Directory integration RBAC. This is the same thing that I spoke about, that you can provide a particular role to any user, right, by going to role assignments. So you see here it is. And then this next one is about global replication ensures data protection against regional failures. So we spoke about global replication. So basically, Azure Cosmos DB offers turnkey global distribution, which enables you to replicate your data to any of Azure's worldwide data centers with the click of button. So as I showed you already, that you can go here, sorry, replicate data globally, and just select any region, and that's it. It's added, right? And you just need to save it. So any region we select, it keeps adding. So it just like clicks, and you are adding one more region to it. Now, next one is this HTTPS, SSL or TLS encryption. So it allows, or it supports HTTPS and also supports TLS 1.2, right? Although you have the option to go ahead and uh, run through other TLS, but yeah, it supports TLS 1.2. Uh, if anyone doesn't know what is TLS, TLS is called transport layer security, okay, which is used for any data in motion. So if any application is using the data from Cosmos DB, so TLS 1.2 is the most secured one right now. And Azure Cosmos DB supports it. And then last one is secure and data protection certifications. So it has like many certifications, right? So, so one is SOX, like for financial institutes. Then you have high trust. Then you have HIPAA for healthcare, right? So many other certifications are already there. There is a list of certificates. You can just search for this thing. There is a list of certificates. I cannot bring like all those certifications under this window. So, but if you want to just explore what all certifications are there, data protection certificates, so you can go to any search engine and search for it, and you will get a list of it. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, Manoj is asking, could you apply more than one certifications? So Manoj, it's not that we apply individually. So basically these are compliance, right? So if you are keeping your data for some financial institutes and they ask you whether your data is SOX compliant, so you can say that yeah, Cosmos DB is SOX compliant, and if you are using with healthcare, they will ask whether it is HIPAA compliant. So you can go ahead and say yeah, it is HIPAA compliant. So it's not that something that we do manually; it's taken care by Azure directly, so automatically. So that way your data is secured. So basically, when you are working with any such kind of customer who wants to keep their data very much secured, so they trust on these certifications and they want to make sure whoever is the uh, wherever your data is being restored, whether those repositories are this certifications compliant or no, whether those repositories have the certifications or not. If you say that yeah, it does not, Cosmos DB does not have HIPAA, then maybe healthcare will not be willing to keep their data here, right? So that way it makes sure that you have all the certifications available, and there is a list of certifications. So basically any industry that you are working with, in I think almost all those industries, it supports all the certifications related to those industries, but still you can go to the link to uh, see the list of those certifications. So Manoj, I hope I answered your question. So you don't need to. Okay, so Manoj is asking another question, that if I store financial as well as healthcare data in the data store, what compliance should I pick? So basically, you don't pick any compliance. It's just it is there, right? So uh, take an example, like if you are keeping your data in a hard disk, right? And someone is saying, is your disk bit encrypted? You will say, yeah, it is bit encrypted. Now, bit encryption, maybe they will say, okay, if it is corporate data, then your hard disk needs to be bit encrypted. And then you will say, okay, fine, if it is bit encrypted, let's store the corporate data, it's fine. But if healthcare is coming on, like, okay, is your disk HIPAA compliant? You will say, yeah, it is HIPAA compliant. Then fine, go ahead and store my data in your disk, right? Then same again, a financial organization is coming, like, okay, is it's a SOX compliant? You will say, yeah, it is SOX compliant. Then they will say, okay, keep the data. Now the thing is, if you have made sure that your disk, wherever you're storing the data, has all the compliance certifications, then you don't have to worry about it. You can store all the data in your disk, right? But again, in Cosmos DB case, it's not just one hardware, right? So as I spoke about physical partitioning, logical partitioning, so your data, so you will create separate databases for your customers, and definitely there will be different subscriptions altogether if you are working with different customers. So if you are working with healthcare, you will be creating a separate subscription for that customer, and then you will have a separate database there, right? So simple thing is like, it is compliant whether you are going with healthcare or whether you are going with financials, right? So it is compliant. You don't have to pick anything specifically. Exactly, Manu. So you don't have to be worried about anything. It is there. That's it. Joseph is saying something. I think shared responsibility model means not just Cosmos DB, but all other customer control aspects have to be compliant also. Exactly. Yeah. Thanks, Joseph. Okay. So next one is about 1 second. Yeah, so next one is about data encryption. So encryption at rest is implemented by using several security technologies, including secure key storage systems, encrypted networks, and cryptographic APIs. Systems that decrypt and process data must communicate with systems that manage keys. There is no impact or changes to the performance SLAs now that encryption at rest is enabled for all existing and new accounts. So just in the previous slide, I spoke about this encryption is available with all the regions. So it does not impact your SLA, or uh, um, yeah, it does not impact your performance SLAs, right? Or it does not even add additional cost to your resources. So that is the thing, and there is no additional cost if storage service encryption is enabled. So you see, this is a very simple uh, this one process, which is a very common process for any storage encryption, right? So you have a secret store key, and then you have Azure Cosmos DB management service, which will use the encryption key, right? And then it will verify against that key. It will send the process. Then it will go to storage processing, okay, and same thing, it goes even with here, like TLS 1.2. If someone is trying to access the data from here, right? So it is again TLS 1.2. But here mainly it's about encryption. Uh, you have the kind of keys, we call it, like there are two things. One is master key and one is again uh, resource token. So we'll talk about that in the next slide and how it is implemented. But yeah, this is a normal standard kind of encryption process where you deal with the keys, right? And let me show you here. If you click on these keys here, you will see that there are primary keys, secondary keys, right? And then there are read-only primary keys and secondary keys. So these keys are managed by Azure portal, right? But you have the option to regenerate the keys if you just click here, regenerate primary key or regenerate secondary key, right? And then you can use these keys to encrypt the data. That way you are making your environment safer. And that's why they're providing two separate keys, so that sometimes you can use primary and you can rotate between your primary and secondary keys. And not only that, you can regenerate a new keys, so that way you're not exposing your primary or secondary key for long enough, maybe for any kind of attack or anything. Okay, so in this slide, like as I spoke about master keys and resource tokens, right? So master keys provide access to all the administrative resources for database account. Master keys provide access to accounts, database users, and permissions. Cannot be used to provide granular access to containers and documents, right? So are created during the creation of an account, can be generated anytime. So this is the master key that it is talking about. So these are the master keys, right? And again, in these master keys also, as I was saying, that you don't have only read write keys, you have you have read only keys also. So if you know some applications are not going to write to Cosmos DB, they are just going to use Cosmos DB for reading purpose. You don't need to share read write keys with them. That way you can just share the read only primary keys or secondary keys with them to make your system more robust or more secured actually. Okay, so this is about master keys. Now there are resource tokens. Resource tokens provide access to the application resources within a database. Now, resource tokens provide access to specific container, partition keys, documents, attachments, right? So basically, when any user is granted permission uh, or is granted permission to any specific resource, these resource tokens are created, right? Are created when a permission resource is acted upon by post get or put call. So basically, suppose you are writing any .NET application and you are doing this request, you are performing these operations like post get or put call. That time, permission resource is acted. So basically, that time it will go and request for the resource token. Okay, and then these are time bound with a customizable validity period. So it will expire after certain time. I think by default it is 1 hour. Maximum you can store it up to 5 hours. Right, and again you can add users and assign roles using the roles and using IAM access control. So you can add a role here, right? So this also is a process for resource token. So you saw there are two things. One is master keys. So you can go to keys and then you will see these keys here that you can share with any application. So these are called master keys. And then here you use this and internally it will create the resource token for any resource. Okay, so this is about resource tokens and master keys. Next we are going to IP firewall. So let me go to that, firewalls and virtual networks, right? So Azure Cosmos DB supports IP-based access controls for inbound firewall support. This model, like the firewall rules of traditional database system, and provides an additional level of security to your account. Right, with firewalls, you can configure your Azure Cosmos account to be accessible only from an approved set of machines or cloud services. Right, so you see here that allow access from Azure portal, and then it will say allow connections from within public Azure data centers. So these are exceptions, right? If you do this, then the current settings will block all access to the account. So you see this, if you want to access to this Cosmos DB from any other Azure services or account, you will not be able to do this. So by default, that's why this is enabled, this is checked, right? And then you can provide any particular IP range, as I already spoke about it. And then you can select a virtual network, right? So this again, we will talk in the next slide. But here, to configure IP policy based control, access control, the user must provide the set of IP addresses or IP address range in CIDR, right? Form to be included as the allowed list of client IPs to access a given Azure Cosmos account. Once this configuration is applied, any requests originating from machines outside this allowed list receive 403 forbidden response. Right, now this is also important. The firewall changes may take up to 15 minutes to propagate. So if you are adding a firewall change, remember that it might not impact immediately. It may take up to 15 minutes, but not like, it's not hard and fast rule that it will take place only after 15 minutes. Maximum it may take up to 15 minutes. Then you can combine IP based firewall with subnet and vnet access control, and that we are going to talk in the next slide. So you see here, you can configure the Azure Cosmos account to allow access only from a specific subnet or virtual network by enabling service endpoint to access Azure Cosmos DB on the subnet within a virtual network, right? So this is what I was talking about. You can add a new virtual network here. So you can give it a name, provide a particular address space, right? Location, give it a name. That's it. So right now, because I don't have any virtual network, that's why it is asking me to create. Now, if I go to add existing virtual network, it will try to search for the existing virtual network in this subscription, and then you can provide uh, that virtual network here. So that way, what will happen that you are allowing any application within that virtual network to access this Cosmos DB account, right? So any application or any particular user outside that virtual network will not be able to access it. So this is also a very standard way to make your Cosmos DB account secure. And then if you have one virtual network, in that virtual network you can add a particular IP range. So you're not allowing everybody in that particular virtual network or in that particular subnet. Inside that also you can restrict it only for one particular IP address or maybe for a range of IP addresses, right? So this is about security, and the last topic under security is advanced threat protection, right? So in advanced threat protection, so there are two things that it takes care of, right? So access from unusual location. This alert is triggered when there is a change in the access patterns to an Azure Cosmos account, where someone has connected to the Azure Cosmos DB endpoint from an unusual geographic location. And remember, these things will happen if you don't restrict it through your firewall or through your this virtual network, right? So if you don't do that, you may encounter such kind of issues. And maybe there is a requirement that you want it to be accessed from anywhere, not limited to a virtual network. But sometimes maybe you are saying someone is accessing from a location where your application is not running, right? But still you are seeing this unusual trend. So that definitely you cannot keep tracking of it. You cannot keep a track of it, like where it is happening and what is happening. So that way you enable advanced threat protection and takes care of all these activities, and it reports to you, right? So that way you are rest assured that you are not being attacked, or your application is not being attacked by any parasite. So let me show you this. So you go to advanced security, which is in preview mode right now, and you can just click on, right? So by default, you can see it is on right now. You can switch it off. And then one more thing, one important thing actually I should be talking about, that it is available only with SQL API right now, not with all other APIs, right? All other APIs in the sense like MongoDB, Cassandra, Gremlin, it's not available with those APIs. And I think the team is working very hard on this, and it will be made available even for other APIs, right? So unusual data extraction. This alert is triggered when a client is extracting an unusual amount of data from an Azure Cosmos DB account. This can be the symptom of some data exfiltration performed to transfer all the data stored in the account to an external data store, right? So all these activities will be reported if you enable advanced threat protection. So these are some of the ways to secure your data. So you know how secure uh, your data can be, but it's Azure will not do all these things automatically, right? You have to do these things proactively. You have to select a particular virtual network. You have to create a particular virtual network if you don't have one, right? You have to select a particular CIDR range. You have to select a particular IP address to make your data more secured, right? So these things you have to do. Azure is giving you the option to do this, but it's not doing it for you, right? It's not doing spoon feeding for you. You have to take care of it, because many times when the customer is bringing their data on Azure, they ask you, will Microsoft take care of this, right? You have to say that Microsoft gives you the flexibility to go through all the security features, to enable all the security features, but it's your responsibility to take care of all the security. If you don't take care of this, then nobody is going to take care of this. Okay. So this is all about security, and then next we jump to our last part, which is about how to guide, right? So enough of talking. Let's go to our Cosmos DB. So try to create first Cosmos DB account. I clicked on plus, and then here we will search for Cosmos DB. Right, so you see here Azure Cosmos DB, and then you can see all these details about this, and you can click on documentation to learn more about Azure Cosmos DB, because as I already mentioned that in 2 hours I cannot cover each and everything. This is an overview where I covered about introduction, then security, and now I'll show you how you can work with Cosmos DB. But if you want to learn more, you can go to this documentation. Click on create, and then it will ask you for the subscription. Resource group, if you already have one, it's fine. Otherwise, you can just click on create and provide a name for your resource group. Right, give it a name. Any name is fine, maybe Cosmos DB demo. Right, but make sure this is a unique name. So if I just give Cosmos DB demo, it won't work, so I'll just add ADP. Right, so it becomes unique now. Now here is the API, which is core SQL API, which was the default one when Cosmos DB was first uh, created, right? And this was named as document DB. And this is also an important thing. Most of the places, or many places, if you go through start going through the documentation, you will find still they refer it as document DB because they have not updated it, right? But after they added all other APIs, they changed it to Cosmos DB. So here is Cosmos DB, and then when you click on this, you can see other open source APIs, which is MongoDB API, then Cassandra, Azure Table, and Gremlin. So if you're familiar with any of these APIs, you can go and start playing around with any of these APIs. And remember this, once you create the account, you cannot change the API, right? Because internally it will change the storage mode, the way you are selecting the API, right? Because all are different types of APIs, all are different types of model. One is key value model, one is column based model, one is document based model, one is graph based model, right? So that's why once you create the account, you have to make sure which API you are going to use. Once you have created, you cannot change it. Now, there is one thing called notebooks, and I'm going to talk about notebooks. I'm going to show you how you can leverage notebooks in Cosmos DB. It is in preview mode right now. Okay, by default it is off. You can switch it on, and then it will ask you for the location. You can just provide a location for this. Then it will ask you whether it is production or non-production, right? So if I select production, it will allow you like multi-region rights or availability zones, but you don't have to be worried about this at this point of time. Even if you are keeping it non-production and it is disabled, and your Cosmos DB account is created, later also you can go and perform these operations. And I showed you, right, how you can enable multi-region rights and availability zones. So that way you can do that. And then you go to networking. So again, even if you leave it default right now, later also you have the flexibility to add a virtual network, and you can make these changes. Uh, but if you know that your Cosmos DB account has to be within this virtual network, so while creating itself, you can provide those details, right? You can go for private endpoint, you can go for public endpoint, and so you have all these features available. Allow access from virtual Azure portal, allow access from this from my IP, right? So by default it is deny. You can give allow. Then again virtual network. So all these options you can provide while creating Cosmos DB account itself. Even if you are not doing it, initially you don't know what all virtual networks, what all security features you need to enable. You can just go ahead with the default one. Again encryption, right? So service managed key or customer managed key. So what I showed you, master keys, right? Those were service managed keys, but you have the option even to customer managed keys. Means you can bring your own customer key and you can use it for encryption and decryption purpose, right? So you can do this customer managed key. Normally, whenever you will select customer managed key, it will ask you to use customer managed key through Key Vault, right? So there is Azure Key Vault where you can keep your credentials secured. That way you are not storing your credentials anywhere in Notepad or in your application anywhere, because if you do that, you are exposing your secure keys outside in the world, outside to any end user, right? So that way your application will not be secured even if you provide all virtual network or IP firewall, anything. But if you don't do this, that's it. You are just exposing your database outside to the outside world, right? So that's why it is recommended or it is preferred to keep your uh, secret keys or anything in Azure Key Vault. Okay, and so that is one thing. Then tags, you can create your tags. So in case if you are not aware of tags, uh, so tags are normally used if you want to group all the resources, right? Suppose you are working with many departments, like you have many departments in your organization and you want to create a separate billing for one particular uh, department actually. Then what you can do, whatever resources you are creating, even though you are creating resources in any existing resource group or any new resource group, you can provide a tag, right? Maybe I can give it a department name, and then value will be maybe finance department, right? So any resource that you create using this key value pair, you will be able to see all the cost related to only this particular department in your cost management, in Azure cost management, right? So you can see that cost management here. So you can see this cost management based on the keys. So normally keys, these tags are used for grouping all the resources that is being created, maybe for your team, maybe for your department. Okay, so right now I'm not doing that. So let's get rid of this. Right, so this is about how do you create Cosmos DB account. Once you click on this, it takes a couple of minutes and then you will have a new Cosmos DB account running up. I already have it, right? ADP Cosmos. So once you have created your Cosmos DB account, you will come to this page, right? So you see what all features are there on this pane when you come. One is access control. So you know what you can use access control for to provide a particular name. So basically RBAC, role-based access control, you can use IAM. Then tags, as I already mentioned, this is a diagnosis problem. If you want, just you can just go through these things for this will be used for diagnosis purpose separately for all different kind of APIs, how you can troubleshoot. These are quick start, like if you want to use this Cosmos DB with any .NET application, a Xamarin application, Java, .NET, Python, anything, so you can go ahead with these approaches. So these are like you will not have to do it from scratch. They will give you one setup and then you can start working around with that. But these are not something that you really have to do. You can just skip these things. But the main feature is replicate, right? As I showed you already, that how you can replicate, just click on anything, any region, and then it gets added up automatically here, right? So click on this, you can keep going and it will keep adding. That's it. You have to save it, and once you save, your data will be replicated. Again, if I enable multi-region, all these regions will be like read and write enabled. So that's how it is, right? So I'm not going to make any changes here for now. Sorry. Okay, next one is again default consistency. As you see, by default it is session, and you can decide which particular consistency level will be appropriate for you for your application. You can choose any of this. So if you choose strong, bounded stainless, if you go for bounded stainless, you have to define the lag time, right? And maximum lag operations. So there are two things: either you can choose the time or you can choose the operations, right? You have session, consistent prefix, eventual. So you can decide based on whatever you want. Then again, firewall. So if while creating the account, if you have not defined it, now you can come here and create it. Then your private endpoint connections, you can create a new private endpoint here, which will be used by any of your application. And if you don't want, just leave it. You don't need to do that. Then you have course. So basically you can use this Cosmos DB account with another domain, right? You need to enable it. So I didn't cover this part today because this part requires little more in-depth session on Cosmos DB. That's why I skipped this part. But if you want to learn more about this, you can go through the documentation and you will get to learn more about this. Then keys, these are your master keys, which are like service managed keys, right? Not the customer managed keys. Then you have add Azure cognitive search. So these topics also I didn't cover today because these topics require again little more in-depth session. Okay, this is one important topic, but again, I will take a separate session on this, and I will take a session definitely on this one because this is a very important topic, which is trigger, right? So you can define a trigger on any particular container. So you see, you select a container, and then it is select an Azure function app. So if you already have any app, it will ask you to select one, and then give it a name, right? So and you see here you have C sharp Java. So basically, if you have any new entry in your Cosmos DB account, you can enable a trigger. Based on that, you can perform any operation, and that operation can be performed using your C sharp language or JavaScript, right? So I will talk about this particular feature in more detail because this requires at least 1 hour time separately to cover. But yeah, it's good to know that you have some trigger based features in Cosmos DB account. Then you have advanced security that we spoke about. Then you can go to browse where you have all the database and containers. And then you have document explorer. You can go and open data explorer, right? So it is the same thing that we saw on top. Here it is, data explorer, right? So here it appears as like if you have used your mm, management studio, SQL server management studio, it appears almost a similar way where you have your database and then you have your containers. So in one database, you can add multiple containers. As you can see, you can delete database from here, right? And in database, you have multiple items, right? So in this database, this was a demo database, and I have just one item created, but you can have multiple items with multiple hierarchy, right? So you can play around with that. And you see here, there are stored procedures, there are user defined functions, and here is the trigger that I was talking about, right? So these are all important topics, but this requires more in-depth session. So I'll cover these things in detail in any other session. So this is one data, sample data that I captured from one of the Microsoft documentation. And then we have a notebook, or actually we can just go ahead and create a SQL query here. So you see here, you can file a SQL query. By default, it gives you select start from C. C is nothing but collection, right? So when you click on this, you execute the query, it will give you this. I have couple of other uh, queries. Give me a moment. I think I have saved it somewhere. Okay, I have not saved it. So give me one moment. I will show you this. So let me just search for um, so Cosmos DB sample query, right? It will take you to this. And then here is the sample data that I have copied. So you see these are the normal SQL commands that you can use, right? So let's go and try to use this one. I'll go to query. I will paste this one. Select star from families. So this is the family container, right? And then I will run this query. Okay, 1 second. I think I am using a wrong one. Let me just close this and go to family, run a new SQL query. Okay, so I think this ID is not available in this. Okay, so this ID was not available. That's why it didn't give me. But if I use this Wakefield family, because this is my ID here, then it should give me the same result, right? Now, this is not the only thing that you can do with this. You can select particular columns from this particular database. So let me change the query. So this time I am going to select ID and address.city. So here is address.city and I am going to rename this as city. Let's try to run this and check. So you see here name and city. So ID became name and city became this one. Address.city became city, right? So this is also one of the query. Let's try to run another one with a little more complex. right? This time we are going to use join, and this join is not as your normal SQL join, and I'll show you how. So you see here, if I just try to, let me open a new window and run this. So you see in this one, compare this query and this query. So here we are saying select c dot given name, forget about c dot given name, from families. So where is the family? So we will come here down. So this is the families, right? So this is my container name and this is the families. Now in this families, it is saying join C. C is nothing but it is saying f dot children. So in this container, it will go and search check for the children, right? So this is children here. So inside that, it it does kind of self join to find out the children in this container, right? So now in this, you will see in this container, these are the children where family name, given name, gender, grade, etc. So let's see what it is trying to find out. Now, where f.id is Wakefield family, right? F is my families, family is my container, right? So f.id. So let's check where is the ID. So here is the ID. So it means it is asking to fetch all the children who are part of this ID, right? So when we search that, it is saying fetch all the children for this particular ID, but give me only c dot given name, right? So again go here, c dot given name. C is what? C is our children, correct? C in f dot children. So basically C is nothing but alias for the children here. Now it's saying C dot given name. So let's check here. Children given name is Jesse, right? So it means it should give me, it should return me Jesse. There is another one also called Lisa. Let me check if there is anything. So here it is, uh, Lisa, right? So there are two children here. One is this and another one is this. So when we asked to fetch all the children's family name, sorry, all the children's given name from this container, which is families, then it gave me these values, Jesse and Lisa. Okay, so you see we can apply the conditions, but joining when it is doing kind of self join inside the same container. Okay, it will not be able to join two separate containers using this join condition. And that's when notebook comes into picture. So I'll talk about this in just a couple of minutes. Okay, so if you see in this query, it used join C in f dot children, right? What if I change it from children to parents? Let's see what happens. So if I go to parents and then let's try to run this query. So you check this now, given name Robin and Ben. So let's go to query 2 and here parents given name Robin and Ben. Right, so within the same container, when I joined it using parents, it gave me the parents information. When I joined it on children, it gave me children information. But now, as I told you, there is a limitation on this, that you have only self join, right? You can join all the data within the same container or the same database. You cannot run the queries with the two different databases, right? So that way, what we can do here, like if we want to perform any kind of transformation, so that is not recommended on Cosmos DB, right? But they added this notebook now. Now using notebook, you can perform any number of operations, any number of transformations on Cosmos DB. And that is a very strong feature. So let me show you how you can create a notebook. So if you go here, if you go here, here you can see new notebook and you can click on this, right? And here you need to select what language you want, whether you want Python, C sharp, Echo, and these are Twinkle for Spark, then there will be for Scala, there will be .NET, and I think this one is for Scala. So you can write all those transformation directly here now, right? So that makes it very easier because earlier in SQL API call, you were not able to do all kind of transformations and run these operations directly on Cosmos DB data. So I have one sample, first of all, database here, which is called retail demo. Let's check the data here. So this is the website retail demo. Website data is a container, and in that there are multiple items. So if I click on this, you can see this is the format of all the records. So basically, each entry will be captured here as one item, right? So in one item, suppose the sample is this cart ID, action, item, price, username, country, event date, year, latitude, longitude, address. So this is being captured here in Cosmos DB inside website data container, right? But I have used Microsoft documentation to generate this data set, and let me show you how. And I've used notebook itself to generate this data. So let's go through this. This is the notebook, okay? And I am using Python here, Python 3. So in this case, first one is import azure.cosmos and then import partition key. So these are like prerequisites before you proceed further uh, for using Python with Cosmos DB. Then you are saying database, Cosmos client.create database if not exists. So basically this is the first step. When I started using this, I didn't have this database. Retail demo, I didn't have this container, right? So when you run this, it will create this database if it does not exist. If it is already there, it will leave as it is. Same thing with container. If it is not there, it will try to create website data. If it is there, then it will leave. And in this case, the partition key that it is using is cart ID. So remember when I mentioned how to use a partition? So I said you can use even a username, right? Who based on the user you can create a partition. But in this case, they are using cart ID. So that way you are making sure that you are utilizing the containers or the partitions in the most efficient manner, because in one container you will never exceed 20 GB of data, right? So that way they are using cart ID. For each cart there will be separate partition, logical partition created. So using this Python command, this has been taken care of. And then Microsoft is providing this document which is publicly available. If you just search for this document here, you'll be able to access this data, right? And using the Python script, it is trying to copy this data within Cosmos DB account, right? So you see URL open, and then it will print importing data. This will take few minutes. After it is done, the data is being stored in this variable called data, and then you can uh, ingest the or upsert this item in the container. Now, which is the container in our case is a website data. If you don't have that container, and if you try to run this particular part in a separate cell, it will not work because it will try to search for this container and it will not find, because you are defining the container, right? And so if you are trying to use it in a separate cell, it might not work. Then it will ingest the data, and after that you want to verify it, so you will run this and it will show you all the data here. So I have already run, so I am not running it again because it populates the entire screen with the data here. And all the information are available directly on Microsoft documentation. Okay, I'll share this notebook and I'll share the link also, so that you can go through all these uh, scripts and you can play around with the scripts here. Now, after the data has come to the container, next one is, you see here percent SQL. These are called magic keywords, right? And that way, within Python notebook, you will be able to use your SQL API. Now you see here, again, we are back to the same syntax that we used in SQL API call, right? Select C.action price as item revenue from C. C is nothing but again your collection. So if you see this, this is the matrix, and here is df cosmos dot head. So here actually we are pushing this data to a data frame, right, which is df underscore cosmos. And if you are familiar with Python, you know that there is something called data frame here that is used uh, mainly to use like Python libraries, maybe the graphs and other stuffs like mathematical libraries and everything else. So you see here, it is fetching all this information from the data that is available in website data container, right? It is fetching item revenue, country, item, what is the item exactly, right? So you see, these are the data and which is available in tabular format now. And then again, we are using this data frame concept to do group by based on country to do sum and all, right? So again, as I told you, you will be able to use all the mathematical operations of Python if you use data frame. Now it is doing sum, and then it will display the sum value based on the country. So you have the item revenue, and then you will use pandas. Not sure how many of you are familiar with pandas framework in Python, but pandas is mainly used for any analytics operation in Python, and which is a very powerful framework. Okay, so again here we are using this data frame. So all this while we are using Cosmos DB, we are just giving DF to make sure, or just for identification purpose, that okay, we are going to use this for data frame. And here we are creating this data frame using this data, right? And again, we are putting this condition where DF Cosmos is action, where action is purchased, right? So let's go here. So you see here, we had added this action item here, right? So in this action, there is viewed, added, and there will be something called purchased. So it is asking to check only those action items where it is purchased, and then sort out these values and take only 5 top values here based on the item names. So here you have, okay, and then after doing this, we are going to import sys, and these are mainly used for showing the graphs and all. So you can run pip command to install all the required items here for this particular user, right? You will see some warnings and errors, but you can just ignore that. We don't need everything here. And then we are using again the same notebook for reading the file. Okay, and so if I don't know if you are familiar with Python, if you are familiar, you will find these things are very like normal operations which is being performed on uh, Python notebook. So you are using the same set of data which you used earlier, and after that you are performing other operations on country and what do you say, like admin. But these are, so basically these are joining. So whether you are joining the country from admin, and then what kind of joining you are doing, like left join, right join, so it provides you that information. And after that you do merge JSON. So once you have done merge JSON, then the data is being stored in again JSON data. Again you go down, you provide other information which is actually related to graph. So you don't need to know this Python in the entire detail, but I just wanted to show you that the same data you can use to fetch the graph here itself in your Cosmos DB account. Now these things were not available earlier when you had just SQL API call. So this has been made very easy here that okay, Manoj is asking what is the significance of cells. So cells basically you can just write separate codes, right? Separate window, and you are using those cells for running separate commands in the same notebook. And a notebook is like collection of your commands which is being stored somewhere, right? Like you can save it, so you can add any number of cells, you can add any number of commands, and then you can save it, and you can run these cells separately. So you see here, you can run these cells separately, but you cannot run any individual command separately within this cell. So that's why if you want to run a set of commands, then you put all those commands inside one cell, and then you run only that particular cell. And the same like Jupyter Notebook. If you have used Jupyter Notebook in past, so it is exactly same as Jupyter Notebook. So you see, so you are performing the live operation or on this Cosmos DB data. Now the biggest advantage of this, earlier it used to be that you are bringing the data from Cosmos DB to a separate storage account, maybe to data lake or maybe to SQL to perform these operations. But now you are not doing that. You are performing these operations directly on data, right, where it is residing. So you are getting rid of the data ingestion process. You are getting rid of another ingestion, another storage, right? So you can, so that way the notebook is this powerful, right? So one more feature that I just wanted to show here, which is related to the graphs. So this way, here itself in Cosmos DB, you can see all these graphs. So definitely you need to know Python script. If you don't know Python script, there is nothing to be worried about. You, if you know .NET, you it's a C sharp, you can just go with C sharp. If you know Scala, you can just go and write Scala code here. So main funda is you can write your own code to do anything. You can just create your own graph. You can create your own chart. Uh, you can create your own this one, right? Like you can show the revenue by country. So anything is possible here directly now. So this is the benefit of notebook. Now, okay, one question. Can we estimate the cost of running a notebook? Yes, you can do that. And that was exactly the next point. It's kind of difficult to estimate the cost of running a notebook. But again, when I spoke about the resource cost, resource unit, that how many RUs you are going to use, it depends on the number of reads and writes, right? And that it's very difficult to judge how many reads and writes it's going to be. So it's always better to go through a sample data, go through these operations and try to find out how much RUs it is going to be. And after that, you are going to use this particular tool, which is called capacity calculator of Cosmos DB. And here you can just find out like which API you are using here. So SQL Core or Cassandra. Right now it is available only for these two. How many number of regions? So if you have enabled it for multiple regions, then you have to make sure that you provide that information. Then your multi-region rights, is it enabled? So I showed you how you can enable multi-regions or not, right? And then total data is stored in transactional units, like you have to define the storage. Use analytical store, right? So this is something I didn't speak about, and we will talk about this in more detail when I talk about Synapse. But yeah, again here it is, are you performing this operation, right? So basically if you're using notebook, it means you are going to perform analytics on that data. So you will click on enable here, right? Then total data is stored in analytical store. So this is uh, basically storage is required for doing this. So basically it uses data like gen 2. So I'm not going in that detail right now. So for now you can keep it off. Item size, like for each item that is being created, what is the size, which is 1 KB or whatever, but there is a maximum limit to that, which is 2 MB for each item that you create on Cosmos DB. Then reads per second per region, writes per second per region. So this you will be able to identify based on the sample data that you run through, and when you do the calculation, it will give you one approximate value. So you cannot calculate separately just to find out the cost of running a notebook, but you can perform these operations to find out one approximate cost, right? Even if not, you can just go through these default ones. Like if you're just running it for like a demo purpose or just like for your learning, then this will be the basic costing at $37 per month, right? So this is about the calculation. Now, this is about notebook and APIs. And now you know, like this is, we are using SQL API. If it was MongoDB API, you will write queries in a different way. So that way you can do all those things. There is something called Synapse Link. And I think this is the one. See, enable Azure Synapse Link. I am going to cover this topic when I am going to cover Azure Synapse in my next session. So So on 27th June, I am taking this session on Azure Synapse Workspace. And in this, I'm going to cover this topic called Synapse Link. And this is a very strong update or very powerful update that has come during this build, just like last month, right? So I'll talk about this during that session. So I'm not covering it right now. Okay, so this is about notebook. Then one more topic I wanted to cover is migrate data. How you can migrate it. So again, this is a vast topic, but in simple words, there is a tool called this one document DB data migration tool. So as I already mentioned that Earlier, Cosmos DB used to be known as Document DB because it was supporting only SQL API, which is document-based API, right? So they have not yet changed the name. It is Document DB data migration tool. You can provide your source and destination, and then you can perform this operation there. So if you have any existing MongoDB API or anything, you can just try to leverage that and see like how it works. But this is the link, and I will add this link in the description section of the video that I'll post on YouTube. Right, so you can play around with this, but it's easy. It's not like very difficult process. And after you do the migration, you have to just make sure that you change the connection of your application, that it's not pointing to the existing uh, uh, NoSQL database. So you have to just change it to Cosmos DB database. And then the last topic that I wanted to cover is use cases. Because after learning all these things, the most important thing comes down to use case, like where you can use Cosmos DB. So there is this link. Again, I will add this link in the description, which is solution architecture, Azure solution architectures. And this is very important. If you are an architect, you can just go ahead and select any particular product from this drop down, and it actually takes you, it actually fetches all the use cases related to that particular product, that particular resource. So in this case, I'm using Cosmos DB as my product. So you can see it is showing you all the use cases where you can use Cosmos DB. I would like to cover two main things here which are like widely used right now. One is this one, and there is one this one. So gaming using Cosmos DB. So you see here you have your mobile. If you're playing a game on your mobile, you have as your traffic manager, as your API game backend. It goes and interacts with the Cosmos DB, right? Why it is interacting with Cosmos DB? Because it is very fast, because it is widely distributed in all the region, all the available regions, right? So that way it becomes very fast. From here, you can use Azure functions as trigger. As I told you that we'll talk about trigger in other session. So you can use trigger for any notification or anything from Cosmos DB directly. Now you can use Cosmos DB with Azure Databricks, right? So we created a notebook on Azure Cosmos DB directly, but you can use Cosmos DB again with Databricks notebook. You can just you just need to create a connection with your Cosmos DB in Databricks notebook, and you can perform all the operations on Cosmos DB directly, right? So this is about so for this gaming operation, you are able to do analytics immediately without any further delay, right? So this is one advantage or one use case of Cosmos DB. But one use case which is widely used nowadays is retail and e-commerce using Cosmos DB. So we all know that normally our relational databases were or have been uh, are being used in most of the retail sectors, but gradually retail and e-commerce are switching towards NoSQL, basically Cosmos DB, because it is like very fast, the latency is very low, and then it is highly available, and due to many other features, so they are moving to Cosmos DB, where one Cosmos DB they use as product catalog and one Cosmos they use as session state, right? And then based on that, you can perform multiple operations on top of that. So you see this is the application, your e-commerce application, and backend it is hitting Cosmos DB instead of hitting relational database. So these are a couple of use cases, but you can go through more and more. You say there are many examples. You can go through these links to understand where all you can use Cosmos DB. If you are a solution architect, and if you want to talk to customer about this, you want to propose a solution around Cosmos DB, so it's better to go through all these architectures to understand where all you can use, where all Cosmos DB fits in. Okay, another question. Do you have any performance optimization best practices for using Cosmos DB with microservice apps running in multi-data center? This Cassandra can run in Kubernetes with operator support. Okay, yeah, so there is a proper documentation around performance optimization best practices for Cosmos DB, but on top of my head right now, I can talk about the partitioning, right? If you are using your partitioning properly, everything will fall in place accurately. So if your partition is proper, you will create a lot of logical partitioning, maybe for each individual item that is being stored there. And because all those things are replicated in basically in one region like multiple times, and then in all other regions as well, so that way anyways your performance is going to be faster. So the most important thing that comes on top of your mind is partitioning. So use partitioning properly, and then you will be able to do this. But I will share one link which is related to performance optimization or best practices for Cosmos DB when I share this PDF along with the video. So any other question, because I am done with this now. And if you want me to cover any other topic related to Cosmos DB in detail, just drop me a note on email or on Meetup group anywhere, and I will try to cover up that particular topic in detail. Okay, and so any question? Okay, so I will take that as no. So that's it. Thank you everyone for attending this session on weekend. So I moved these sessions to 9 a.m. so that I can have some free weekend. Otherwise, I was spending my entire Saturday on these sessions. So that's why I just moved it to the morning so that I can enjoy rest of my evening. Okay, so hope you all enjoy your rest of the evening. So thank you everyone. Thank you very much. And again, make sure if you have any question, anything, just drop me a mail. Okay, my email ID is prashant at the rate azuredataplatform.com. And like all the previous videos, you will find on azuredataplatform.com. You come here, you go to videos. Right, so I could not upload last session's video because those videos were not like it didn't come out very well, so I didn't upload that. Right, but all other videos you will find here, right? And just one request, if you have not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, please go ahead and subscribe because I need to complete at least 100 to get a proper name to my YouTube channel. Okay, so you can just click on any of my video. You can go to the URL, and then this is the YouTube channel. So you can see I only have 25 subscribers. Not good, right? So I would request you all to just go and subscribe to this YouTube channel because I'll be uploading even other videos apart from this session videos. So that's it for now. And my next session is going to be about Synapse, and after that, I'm going to take another session on SQL Server Big Data Cluster. So go ahead and do RSVP if you have not yet done. Okay, so thanks a lot for your time, and see you again in my next session.
Thank you very much, Prasad.
Thank you.
That was really excellent.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you. And you have a pleasant weekend. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye bye.
Bye all.